here to prevent what they see as widespread fraud, Jose. But, Jose, this comes as as the early voting starts here in Georgia, as you mentioned. We just heard from the Georgia Secretary of State, who says this could potentially, he says, be record-breaking in terms of turnout. So far, 71,000 people this morning have cast their ballots, Jose.
And Gabe, this comes after Trump held a rally last night in Pennsylvania, a little unusual rally. It was interrupted by 2 medical emergencies, among other things.
Unusual, to say the least, Jose. Yes, this rally was in Pennsylvania. It's actually a town hall that was moderated by Kristi Noem. And there were 2 medical emergencies, and there were lengthy interruptions. At one point, the former president started playing music, and it turned into some sort of bizarre dance party at times. Our team spoke with some of the attendees, and you see the former president there dancing along to YMCA and other songs. We spoke to some of the attendees to get their reaction on what transpired. Let's take a listen.
It was my first Trump rally. It was a town hall, and I did expect him to take more questions. I thought he would talk longer. However, I still will vote for him. I think he's a very good candidate, and the concert was great.
I felt like I was sitting in a room with him, just him. I could have been here another hour, another 2 hours. It was just great spending time with the president.
The former president this morning calling it amazing and a great evening. Former President Trump is expected here in Atlanta later on today for a rally, again, as early voting kicks off here. Jose.
And Aaron, meantime, you're in Detroit, where the vice president is making stops as part of her battleground blitz. What's her message?
Well, the Harris-Walz campaign has been saying for months now that they want to make sure they don't leave any votes on the table. And so we're really seeing the vice president and her running mate do this blitz of battleground states. And this week, the vice president really focusing on black communities and black men in particular. And the message that we should expect to hear from the vice president here in Detroit when she does this radio town hall this evening is that she has plans and ideas that she believes will help the black community. In particular, she's rolled out this new opportunity agenda for black men, where she talks about creating a structure for loans for black entrepreneurs. There's a health initiative that would be focused on black men and things like sickle cell anemia and prostate cancer. And that's the message that the vice president really is trying to advance while she's on the ground here in Detroit. She was in Pennsylvania yesterday, in North Carolina the day before, talking to black community leaders, religious leaders as well. At the same time, there is an effort by the campaign and by Vice President Harris in particular to make sure that they are talking about former President Trump and their belief that he did not help the black community in any great way in his first administration, and the second Trump administration would be similar and more dangerous. In particular, the vice president, for the first time at her rally yesterday in Pennsylvania, played a compilation video, clips of former President Trump in interviews and at some of his campaign events, talking about, in particular, the enemy within was a phrase that we heard the former president use, and it was a part of this compilation video. And he talked about using the military, not the National Guard, or the National Guard and other parts of the military inside the United States. I want you to hear what the vice president had to say on the stage about that after she played this video last night.
He's talking about that he considers anyone who doesn't support him or who will not bend to his will an enemy of our country. Donald Trump is increasingly unstable and unhinged. And he is out for unchecked power. That's what he's looking for.
And so that messaging about Donald Trump being out for unchecked power really speaks to what the vice president has been saying really for months now about Donald Trump presenting a danger if he were to become president again. That's a message that we can expect to hear the vice president reiterate over and over again on the campaign trail. We would expect to hear that in this radio town hall she's going to do this evening. At the same time, weaving in her personal story and the ideas that she has for a Harris administration. It'll be interesting, too, Jose, I think, to listen this afternoon on this radio town hall to see how the callers, the people who call into this radio show, are going to be the ones posing questions to the vice president. It'll be interesting to see how that audience approaches her and what they want to hear answers to, not from journalists, but from regular folks, Jose.
Gabe Gutierrez and Aaron Gilchrist, thank you both so very much. So I want to kind of get into, Dawn, thanking you as well. To an article in Reuters that says the vice president is in talks with Joe Rogan's podcast about an interview. She's sitting down with Charlamagne tha God today. We're 21 days from Election Day. Is there enough time for the vice president to accomplish this?
Sure, absolutely. Remember, when you're talking about trying to reach black men, you're talking about reaching black men who are already going to come out and vote. Now that voter registration deadlines across the country are largely passed, or they're passing in the next few days, you're talking about how do you get to a marginalized section of the electorate that is already going to come out and participate. And you got to go find them where traditional Democratic candidates have not gone. There's no sense in conceding the millions of eyeballs and ears that Joe Rogan and Charlamagne tha God can bring to the table. You might not convince all of them, but you might get just enough to curb the tide, the seeming tide of black men considering voting someone other than Kamala Harris, and you might bring new listeners into the fold. So I think it's a significant strategy. Listen, Democrats are going to have to go out into places where non-traditional constituencies are to be found in order to cobble together the Harris coalition, which is a new and novel thing to deliver her the presidency.
Don, just wondering, how much do you buy into the narrative that African-American men are, in substantial numbers, turning away from the vice president?
I don't buy into it that much. Listen, at worst, African-American men are going to be about 85 to 86% for Kamala Harris. That makes us the Scottie Pippen of American democracy to black women's Michael Jordan. There's no other constituency who is going to consistently vote not only Democratic, but who is going to support Kamala Harris in those kind of numbers. And so 85%, 86% is an overwhelming amount of support from one particular demographic. And yes, it's less than Barack Obama, but you also have to remember that Kamala Harris is, a substantial amount of time after the Barack Obama wave, in which all voters, not just African-American men, are wondering what the presidency really means for me. So I give her substantial kudos for dropping a significant plan for black men. We've never seen a presidential candidate do that before. And I think it's resonating from what I've seen on social media and in the community. It's only been 24 hours, but I think now she has real policy in her hand that she can go out and sell to African-American communities. So I thought the narrative was overblown to begin with, and I think she's definitely going to help curb it over the next 3 weeks with a real plan.
Don, I'm not even going to get into who is Pippen and who is Jordan on this ballot, just because I'm not interested in that one, but that's for another day's conversation. Olivia, kind of staying with the sports theme, my colleague Shaquille Brewster spoke to men at an NFL game in Atlanta. Some shared who they plan to vote for, others shared their top issues. Take a listen to this.
Probably I'll vote, but probably for Trump.
You want to tell us who you're planning to vote for?
Trump?
Why Donald Trump?
I enjoyed his policies, and he did treat us pretty well.
Well, the obvious issue is going to be the economy.
Issues you care most about?
Economy.
Economy is the top issue for you? Why?
I'm working, and I live alone, so that's a big part for me.
Olivia, just wondering if you think that that's an issue that the vice president still has work to do on.
Well, certainly I think that she is working hard to reach the middle class and the hard workers out there across our country. And I think she's talking about the economy in very tangible ways instead of, sitting on a stage and dancing about it, I guess, with contrast to Donald Trump, who's not really saying much these days. And I think she is talking about, she's looking at tax credits. She's looking at home buying credits. She's looking at all these things that are actually going to help those people that, were just interviewed in that segment. And I'll say economists are saying, right? Their economists are saying, look, presidency under Donald Trump would lead to higher interest rates. And Donald Trump's tariffs actually hurt the working class. They hurt manufacturing jobs across our country. And so I think these are all important things to kind of keep in mind, that Donald Trump may be sometimes referring to the economy in broad ways, but the tangible benefits to the people that it's going to impact are actually more important to pay attention to. And I'm seeing that more from Kamala Harris and what she's saying.
And speaking of paying attention to, tomorrow, Olivia, the vice president is set to sit down with Fox News for the first time ever, according to that network. What does it tell you?
Look, I give her tremendous credit that she is very focused on growing this coalition. And I think she is going to Fox News. She's going to try to persuade those voters, those viewers. And I think, look, we're not going to reach the people sitting in the Trump town halls, right, at these rallies. Those people are diehard supporters. But I can tell you that I am hearing from Republicans and independent voters every single day who are watching those Trump rallies and the coverage and saying, like, what is going on here? I don't want this for the future of our country. And I think a lot of those viewers are watching Fox News. And so I think it's important for her to go out, talk to these people, address it, have honest conversations, serious conversations, and let the voters decide for themselves. And I think she's very effectively doing that right now.
Don Calloway and Olivia Troy, thank you so much for being with us this morning. In 90 seconds, breaking news from the Mideast. NBC News has just learned the first U.S. troops have arrived in Israel. Meanwhile, the dire warning from the parents of a hostage executed by Hamas as they speak out for the first time since learning of his death. And back at home, a look at how the hurricane's power has permanently changed the coastline of Florida.
It's something we'll never get back. It's crazy. Part of history is truly gone.
The only thing on the road faster than a race car are rising car repair costs. But with Endurance, you'll never pay for covered car repairs again.
Just 2 claims saved us over $1,700.
If I didn't have Endurance, I would have paid over $7,000 out of pocket to repair my vehicle.
So make the call. Find out how much you could save with Endurance.
Call right now to get $300 off any plan. Call 1-833-440-3910 now.
I have 2 flights trying to land on the same runway. Pilots were cursing me out in Finnish, an in-flight vegetable lasagna food fight over Poughkeepsie, and my kid needs extensive dental work! But I just found out how much house I can afford with Better. So I have one less thing to worry about. Kapteni Alehelia! Give yourself one less thing to worry about. Get Better Mortgage!
Every election night reveals a story about the candidates, about the campaign that we just watched, but it reveals a story about the voters who decided the election. The presidential election is America's family photo, and we take one every 4 years.
15 past the hour, breaking this morning. The Pentagon confirming the first U.S. troops have arrived in Israel to help install and operate an advanced missile defense system there. This comes as Israel is considering how to retaliate against Iran's missile attacks 2 weeks ago. Today, 3 senior administration office officials tell NBC News that Israel told the U.S. it will limit its target to the Iranian military rather than targeting Iran's nuclear or oil facilities. Joining us now with more, NBC News Pentagon correspondent Courtney Cubie in Washington and NBC's Aaron McLaughlin in Tel Aviv. Courtney, let me start with you if I could. What's the significance of sending U.S. troops to Israel at this point, and why would officials here leak such sensitive information right now?
Yeah, so the troops going are part of this THAAD, this air defense system, missile defense system